Joseph R. Beyrle, perhaps one of many interesting individuals during World War II. He enlisted in the 101st U.S. Airborne Division, also known as the Screaming Eagle, where he also specialized in demolitions and radio communications. It was also during this time he would actually gain his famous nickname, Jumping Joe. The reason being is because a few of his squad mates would be afraid of either breaking their shin bones or dislocating an ankle when doing their practice jumps. So they would actually pay Joseph to impersonate them and do their practice jumps in their name. Afterwards, him and his squad would be moved over to England where they would prepare for the D-Day landings. During this time, he would actually participate in a parachuting operation into German-occupied France, where he was to deliver funding to the French resistance in the form of gold. And he actually managed to successfully accomplish this mission twice. During D-Day, he was tasked with sabotaging several installations such as bridges and communications in order to prevent reinforcements from arriving. A few days later, he was unfortunately captured by the Germans when he stumbled upon a machine gun nest. And due to his German last name, Beyrle, his dog tags were taken and given to a German spy so that he may be able to impersonate him and infiltrate the Allied lines for information. Luckily, the spy was found out and captured, but when the U.S. Army found his dog tags, they presumed Joseph as killed in action and informed his family about the unfortunate news, even though Joseph was alive. Perhaps not fine, but alive. During his imprisonment as a POW, he would make several attempts to escape. However, he would fail and he would be moved further east. And the more he kept on attempting and the more he kept on failing, the more the beatings, the torture, and the interrogations would increase in both intensity and frequency. Until one day, him and a couple of other POWs heard that the Soviet Union was starting to close in on their POW camp, Stalag 3/C, and so they attempted an escape. Unfortunately, the two individuals that attempted to escape with Joseph, unfortunately, were killed. However, Joseph managed to actually break free for once. And by coincidence, he also managed to run into a Soviet tank unit, where he proceeded to argue with the officer, not to return him back home, to actually join them in fighting against the Germans. It is stated after a couple of back and forth, he managed to convince the tank battalion commander to actually join, Alexandra Samusenko, the first and only Soviet female tank commander of the 1st Guards Tank Army. Mouthful, I know. And not only did he fight alongside the Soviet Union, he also liberated the POW camp that he just escaped from. Afterwards, him and his group were attacked by a German dive bomber, and Joseph was wounded. However, he managed to survive and was sent to a Soviet hospital where he met Marshal Zhukov, the actual Grand Marshal of the Soviet Union, who, once he listened and heard Joseph's story, actually gave him official papers to return back to the U.S. Army. However, since he was technically listed as killed in action, the officials in Moscow were quite distrustful of him and actually kept him under house arrest for a couple of weeks to make sure that he wasn't a German spy. But afterwards, once his identity was cleared, he was allowed back into the U.S. Army, and then he actually made his way back to Michigan, his home, in April of 1945, where he actually celebrated Victory Day a couple of weeks later when he went to visit Chicago. And 1 year later, in 1946, he actually married his wife, Ironically, he was married by the same priest in the same church that held his funeral. And so ends that bizarre adventure. So, why pick this person or why inform people about him? Simple. We can, I feel like all of us can learn a lesson in trying to be like Joseph. Obviously, not be, go out and get tortured by fascists or almost get killed in near death situations, but try to replicate his traits, his determination, motivation, courage in approaching the things we do. Imagine with that sort of confidence, the same fire that was in Joseph to perhaps not return home, but to continue on fighting. Imagine if we possessed something like that. The things we would be able to create and accomplish, it could be astonishing. Like Joseph, the path to making us into extraordinary individuals is us having a little bit of guts and perhaps just a little bit of luck.